And welcome to our community. Susie Thomas here with you this morning, visiting with a longtime friend, Paula Gates from Pathway Caring for Children, and a new friend, Jennifer Cottrell, who is an adoptive parent. Good morning, both of you.
Good morning.
Paula, let's start with you. Pathway Caring for Children. Recently, within the last couple of weeks, it was featured in the Canton Repository as one of Stark's famous. And the famous was Jim Bridges, who had founded Pathway years ago. Can you tell us a little bit about the history of the organization?
Yes, Jim and Velma Bridges started Pathway 43 years ago now, 1973. And they started with a small group home of boys that were delinquent boys. And Jim and Velma had a heart for helping children to have their needs met. Jim was working with the public system and was just seeing that boys were not getting what they needed. They needed families, and he wanted to provide a loving environment for those kids. So that's sort of how it got started, and things evolved from there, from group homes, working more with child welfare system, and that going to foster care at that point. And today we have foster care, mental health, and adoption services.
Oh, those three. Those are the three focus
Those
areas?
are our main areas, yes.
Say that again. Foster, mental health, and adoption.
Right.
He would tell a wonderful story about one of his first young men that was a client and that they were serving, who later came around to serve on the board and became one of the main donors, and
Yes.
and really a success story. More success stories that you recall?
Oh, yes, a lot of success stories. But I remember Bob Swisher was that young man. He's no longer living now, but he had a great story of Jim and Velma Bridges really changing his life,
So very cool.
making a difference.
It's interesting to me now that we think of fostering and we think of adopting, the mental health services. Interesting that that's needed to be injected into this as well. What kinds of mental health services are we offering to young people?
Yes, actually it's for the whole family, and that would include individual therapy for children, for parents, family therapy, and we have some amazing mental health groups. We'll be having many of those this summer that range from riding horses to art, all kinds of various things that help kids, social groups, that kind of thing, social skills.
What ages are you talking about, Paula?
Well, the groups are for like 5-year-olds to 18-year-olds, depending on what group it is. But we actually have some kids in therapy who are 3 years old, and then go through young adulthood.
What could have happened in a child's life that they would need therapy at 3 years old?
Well, I'd say pretty much all of the children that we work with, most of them are foster, adoptive, and kinship children who come from a hard place. They come from trauma. And as we're learning more and more, children can be traumatized even prenatally. And I know you and I had just talked about that kids can be influenced by their mother's thoughts, attitudes, mental health conditions, even before they're even born.
That her emotions would affect brain development. That's a
Yes.
stunning discovery.
Yes, lots of research now understanding how trauma impacts the brain. And the idea that these brain pathways are made that have children sticking in the fight, flight, freeze, survival mode. And it's really hard for them to develop emotionally, developmentally in a healthy way unless there's intervention.
To put the mission of Pathway Caring for Children in sort of a thumbnail, what would you say?
Well, our mission is to empower children and families to realize their potential and to achieve the possibility of their lives through innovative mental health, foster care, and adoption services. So we want to help families and the children involved to reach their potential to have healthy lives.
And the services that you provide now, can you get into a little more description of what those look like?
Yes. I'll tell you first about my specialty, which is post-adoption and kinship services. And our post-adoption services are for any family that has adopted. So families who adopted through Pathway, but most of our families actually have adopted through other agencies at birth, from public, private, older children, international, any families who have adopted. And we see a common thread there of children who are coming from trauma, who have coming from loss, and who need to build trust in those families. Mm-hmm. And we've expanded that to kinship families, seeing that they have similar needs now. And this would be grandparents who are raising their grandkids, or aunts and uncles raising nieces and nephews, and seeing that they've had similar losses and have had trauma in their lives as well.
Are you seeing more and more of these kinship situations? Is this happening more often, or are we just more aware of it? Do you know?
I think it's happening more often. I think the drug situation plays into this, addiction, and grandparents stepping up, wanting to provide a family rather than someone else outside the family to parent these children.
So many grandparents are now parenting their grandchildren,
yes,
which kind of takes away the fun of being a grandparent, to be able to let the kids do whatever they want.
Right.
Isn't that what grandparenting is all
Yes.
about? To go ahead and spoil the
Yes.
kids,
Yeah.
but instead need to be the disciplinarian and need to be the person providing the stability,
Yes.
not just providing the ice cream.
Yes. Actually, we have a support group for our kinship providers, and it's going to meet tomorrow. Usually meets the first Tuesday of the month from 10 to noon. But in that group, we see parents who are grandparents and are taking that role, and they really do lose the role of being the grandparent. They have to step up and provide the parental role for these children. And it is a loss to them. They've had a lot of losses as far as losing their children to various problems that they have, and then having to take these grandchildren in who they really want to be grandparents to, but instead have to be the parental role figure.
Yeah. How good that you provide support group for other people in the same boat.
Yeah, I think it really meets the need for these grandparents and other kinship providers to be able to talk about their needs, their problems, their emotions, and be able to share that with others who understand, and to be able to get some resources and some education, too, in how to best meet the needs of these children they're raising.
Yes, because even the children they're raising now, that's a different generation.
Yes.
They're so electronic. They're
Yes.
just facing other kinds of issues than their own
Right.
children did. It's a bit daunting. It can be a bit daunting. And speaking of a person who has stepped up to provide a home for children, Jennifer Cottrell is an adoptive parent. Good morning.
Good morning.
What's your story, Jennifer?
Well, 10 years ago now, my husband and I wanted to become parents, and we had tried all the normal ways to have children, and to no avail. And we checked into adoption, infertility treatments, all sorts of things, and God led our heart to adopting through the foster care system, kids that really need a home. And we had opened the door to 0 to 5 years old, and we went from 0 to 2 children in 10 months.
Oh, my.
Our first placement was an 8-month-old, and my second was 3 when she came to live with us, and it was within 10 months of each other.
Oh, my goodness. Suddenly you're a family.
Yeah. And we were able to finalize their adoption, and we have a now 13-year-old and a 11-year-old. And, through everything, I honestly believed that when we adopted them, I couldn't have loved them any more than had they had come out of my own womb. They're my babies, and I will love them and make them okay and give them the life they deserve. And the wonderful thing about Pathway that has, brought me so much sanity, and the fact that trauma is huge, and 0 to 3 is when my kids came, and you would think they were little enough to actually be able to just not even remember any of those things, not know any of those things, but they were wired a little differently. So my 13-year-old has what's called reactive attachment disorder. She has a very hard time having intimate relations with people. She doesn't seem to connect on that level because it's trust, and they don't have it.
Isn't that something? Even though for the last 10 years, she's had a completely stable environment, it was those first 3 years where that something just didn't get formed.
Correct.
Some dots weren't connected.
Exactly.
Would you say the 8-month-old as well?
He does not have as severe of connection issues. He's not your go up and hug on everyone. He's not as connecting, he's very, but yeah, he is a little more on the more typical side of being able to have some relations. He's still a part of all the groups. We still take him. It's always a work in progress. They don't understand why they feel the way they do, and they'll never be able to tell us why they feel the way they do because they were too young.
And they probably don't remember whatever the event was that caused that. Jennifer, was there something that made you seek out Pathway, think that this could have something to do with their life before they became part of our family, rather than, we're going through the teenage girl drama?
Yeah. Well, I literally started my daughter in counseling when she came to live with us. She was just turned 3. We started that year. And we constantly always felt we needed to stay on top of it and build connections. And I believe she was 5, 6 years old when we found Pathway. And once we moved over and started seeing the one-on-one therapy she was getting there, and then we started joining into her being able to find groups to learn social behaviors, because like I said, with having that trouble with social situations with other kids, when you have a child that's not comfortable in their own skin, it's really hard for them to understand social cues. So having the support groups with the other kids, learning social behavior, learning how to feel comfortable in your own skin, we just kept reaching and going, give me more, because it really is making a difference.
What kinds of things did you find most therapeutic that they were able to provide?
Well, we have a connected family group that we attend where we all go as a family, and we do family together activities. And it's ways to build connections just with each other. And all of us enjoy going to it. The kids, they get some time to themselves with other kids, and yet you have your family time, and then the adults have a little time to kind of chit-chat about things. And it's really brought us where now they know family, no hurts. You're supposed to stick together.
Are you aware of some of the things that they were subjected to early on in life? You are?
Yeah. Yes. You find out pretty much their whole story. I may not have all the genetics behind them, but I know where they came from and some of the things they've been exposed to.
I can see in your heart because you love them so deeply. That's hard to even think about, but that's the past, and
Right.
they've got a wonderful future ahead, and you can tell in such a wonderful, stable family environment. Are you able to acquire materials and helpful, boy, I don't even know the word I'm grasping for here, but some kind of techniques to be able to address those kinds of things that they were subjected to?
Yes. With the trust-based parenting, raising children in a typical way, the way we were raised, I mean, as we all know, it's more of a different generation now. Things are way different than they were before. And when you have children with special needs, they don't respond necessarily to the way we were raised. And, you get the words problem child. They don't connect with, the look on your face when you say that was wrong. They don't respond to that.
They don't respond to the mom look?
No,
Wow.
they don't. So you're reaching, somebody help. There's, but when they lack the trust and the connections with people, then they rely solely on their survival little minds, that they won't listen to anyone else. They're in control. They need to take care of themselves, because honestly, they didn't know when they were going to get whatever their need was. In my daughter's situation, I don't know. Was she not fed? That's why she constantly wants to eat. Was in her mind, was her needs not met? That's why she can't seem to be satisfied with anything. Little things like that. So the trust-based parenting has been huge, because now we're learning different techniques on how to get through.
They'll know it's always there. It will always be provided for. They will always be taken care of. We need to take care of a few things ourselves. We'll be back after these words. You're listening to Our Community.